Hey, folks. Welcome to some more YouTubing. Um, the reason I have you gathered here today to look at this is I wanted to talk about Ninth Age and my gaming experience recently and plans for the future. Now, I know I haven't talked about this much in the past, but the truth is that over the last few years, I've been pretty involved in playing Ninth Age. Still going on with all the figures that I had in the past and playing rank and flank big army scale combat. That's really truly my favorite, and I realize that's going to be the long term favorite style of miniature games that I do. So it allows me to do that. Now, within the province and the community, we've really kind of built that up, more especially over the last year and a bit than the previous couple of years after the demise of Fantasy 8th Edition. So it's caught some foothold and it's built upon, gotten new players, etc., etc. Now, what's coming to a head now, and what we're going to talk about today, is that we're going to launch Team Canada to go to the ETC for 2018 in Zagreb. And we're pretty excited about this. So I'm going to document this in some videos and talk about our progress along the way. But I think that's what's worthwhile that we do first is talk about what is the ETC. So ETC, of course, stands for European Team Championship. This is something that was established back in 2006, and it was a platform to have a multinational team event for both 40K and for fantasy initially. I think it started out with something in the neighborhood of 14 fantasy teams. That's the part that I've paid most attention to, being not a 40K player. But I've also noted that they have added to the roster Flames of War, which has been a pretty steady representative for the last number of years there too. Aside from that, they've done other little side events here and there too. Kings of War, X-Wing, I think AOS they're making a pitch at for next year as well. So there's always little sideline events, but the predominant main shareholders are Fantasy, 40K, and now Flames of War. So the description of what goes on at the ETC is that you represent with an 8-person team. Furthermore, you cannot have any repeat factions in that 8-person team for the fantasy event. So that means no 2 beastmen, no 2 high elves. It's all got to be split separate. Everybody represents separately. It's a 6-game event where you're matched up against another nation. And then it's sort of a Swiss ranking as you go through. So the better performers in the first game get matched up against better performers as you go along. Now the scoring is done in the total sum of your contributions for all 8 players across the board. So if you have one guy that does really terrible, but you have 3 guys that do really well, then you're on the upside of that, generally speaking, because that means your opponent has 3 down and 1 up. Right? Makes sense. The other thing that's really unique about it is the way that they do the matchup process for ETC. What's cool about this is that they put up one of your 8 armies. Let's say I take the lead and I put up one of my 8 armies. The next part of it is that they then get to choose one of 2 different armies to match up against that. So they're sort of picking what's advantageous for them. But then the initiative flips the next round. So players 2, or matchup number 2 is in my hands. Matchup number 3 is in my opponent's hands, and so forth until we get to the last ones. Right, so that's a very unique thing, and it takes a lot of thought and analysis to try to get something advantageous for you there. So I think that's the most intriguing thing about ETC. We have locally done a few events already of 4-person team events to get a little bit of a flavor of that matchup process and understand how that balances and juxtaposes. So that's been really fun to do. Now those 6 games that we play go over the course of 3 days. So it's 2 matchup games each day, which all 8 players are going to play. But I should also add that aside from that as a separate event, they have a singles event which goes on the 2 days prior. That, I believe, is just 5 games, but of course you enter that as an individual. And it's a really good warm-up for folks to get a sense of what the ETC challenge level is and the interaction of international play where you're playing a different meta and people have different styles or they have different personalities that come to the table and how to manage that. So on the recommendation of a couple guys that I've interacted with, they really recommend that even if you're really just intending to go for the team event and that's your main purpose for being there, playing in the single side is really advantageous to do as well. And I should also add that you don't have to be a member of a team necessarily to play in that singles event. So that's open for everybody as a side event too. Now, I guess the other thing that I want to make mention of and be real clear about the ETC, historically wise, is that since 2015, when Warhammer Fantasy, the Games Workshop game, fell off, it was voted on. There was a bit of back and forth about what game fantasy side would represent it, Kings of War and Ninth Age being the front runners for that. Through the votes of captains and chairmen, they chose to do Ninth Age. So they've done that 2016 and 2017, and this will be the third year that they do that. Now, Team Canada hasn't represented for the ETC on the fantasy side of things since 2013. So that's why we're excited to really relaunch that and get involved again, represent the flag, represent the country, get some international experience for our individuals, and kind of show that Ninth Age is strong in other parts of the world outside of Europe, where it seems to have its strength and foothold. So there we go. We're launching. We're going to be ready to go to Zagreb for next August in 2018. So with that, I'll leave it for today, but I want you to tune in again later because I'll do more videos about how we brought the team together to create Team Canada. We'll talk about that on the next one. So tune in, and we'll see you again then. Goodbye.